Our diving teacher noticed that the water is very low, lower than normal.
Jadi setelah gempa, air laut naik.
It's
a wet tsunami.
Get in!
Hundreds, possibly thousands of people have died after a series of earthquakes and tidal waves struck a wide area around the Indian Ocean.
Everybody started running and panicking.
Their body is still lying everywhere.
All I kept thinking was, I have to get out.
As the waters recede, the death toll is expected to climb.
Ombak ini kan langsung ambil.
சேறு காதெல்லாம் அப்படி கை வச்ச ஒரு சேறு அடைச்சிக்கிட்டு மூக்கெல்லாம் அப்படி அடைச்சிக்கிட்டு.
Sampah-sampah, saya baru berpikir anak istri saya di rumah.
Udah pasrah, udah berdoa-berdoa.
மூச்சு திணறல, சுவாசிக்க முடியல, அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு.
Bunda-bunda naik terus di situ.
Dolong.
ตอนนั้นก็คือว่ามันไม่รู้ว่าจะตายหรือรอด
In the westernmost part of Indonesia, culture and traditions are rooted deeply. Unbroken by disaster, traditional ways continue among people who have endured an extraordinary heartache.
Gazi. I'm in Aceh, on the northwestern tip of Sumatra Island. It's famous for its coffee, and also well known for the devastation that the tsunami brought here. This was the hardest hit region. Waves of up to 30 metres high were recorded rolling in from the ocean, leaving a wasteland of devastation and shattered lives. Nowhere have people had to rebuild quite as much as residents of the city of Banda Aceh. A quiet regional capital of 260,000 people these days, it's full of men and women with extraordinary stories of resilience.
Memang kalau kita cerita tsunami, itu yang beratnya bukan waktu tsunami itu. Yang beratnya kita jalani hidup setelah tsunami.
Fauzia Baziaria lost her fisherman husband that day when the giant waves came in. She lost another 6 close relatives. But it could have been far worse for the mother of 5.
Jadi setelah gempa, kita lebih kurang 30 menit itu air laut naik. Setelah gempa itu nggak masuk lagi ke rumah. Saya pada saat itu ada bayi 5 bulan, saya gendong, lagi saya kasih makan untuk bayi. Dibilang air laut naik, belum percaya, belum lihat, belum percaya. Jadi anak saya yang laki waktu itu masih sekolah SMP, kelas 2 SMP, dia di TPI, tempat pelelangan ikan itu, udah lihat air, bunda-bunda naik terus di situ.
Sebagian besar mereka lari.
ada rumpun bekas gempa.
As torrents of black water engulfed Banda Aceh, Fauzia and her children had a stroke of luck. A fishing boat from the city's port drifted over and became lodged on the roof of a house nearby.
Jadi saya naik tingkat pertama udah penuh air. Begitu belum sampai 5 menit udah penuh air tingkat 2. Tingkat 2 ada segini. Mau saya bawa kemana nih bayi ini? Itu saya naik loteng tingkat 2, kata perangkap kami dari situ. Kami udah pasrah. Mungkin hari ini kiamat. Udah pasrah, udah berdoa-berdoa. Saya bayi udah buat begini. Datang kapal ini.
Today, her daughter is 20 years old, studying religion at a local university. Fauzia says she has her father's looks, but she lost all the photos of him in the tsunami. With the help of a recovery training program set up after the disaster, she started a fish paste business. She endured years of setbacks before the product was good enough to make a living off.
Setelah lebih dari itu kita putar-putar terus untuk modal, setelah biaya untuk anak-anak sekolah, untuk biaya makan kita sehari-hari, kita putar untuk modal, kita putar-putar terus.
The boat that saved Fauzia and her children now features prominently on the packaging of her fish paste. The local government has retained it as a tourist attraction and a reminder of what residents here have rebuilt from.
Mungkin saya kalau nggak hilang suami, nggak seperti ini. Mungkin itu hikmahnya, mungkin Allah lebih sayang pada saya, kan?
While the tsunami changed lives and upended families, it had an unexpected effect on the politics in Aceh. For years, people here were caught up in a conflict between armed pro-independence rebels and Indonesia's military. It was in these hills where the rebels used to hide. It was their safe haven. And on that day, when the tsunami rolled in, the conflict dramatically changed.
In December 2004, former pro-independence fighter Afrizul bin Ferry Abdullah and his comrades were hiding from military patrols in the hills around Banda Aceh.
Ada semacam meeting dengan kawan-kawan karena keadaan sebelum tsunami kita kan sudah terkepung. Sudah beberapa bulan TNI sama Polri tidak membiarkan lagi kami bisa menyusup ke kampung-kampung.
The Free Aceh movement had been fighting for an independent Islamic state since the 1970s. The armed rebels had a few thousand fighters.
Hartanya saya, nyawa saya sumbang untuk perjuangan.
But when the earthquake and tsunami devastated the place they were fighting for, their priorities changed.
Ombak ini kan langsung diambil semua bot nelayan yang ada itu diambil semua, sehingga rata semua. Jadi setelah 5 menit atau 10 menit kemudian itu banyak orang di laut minta tolong, Pak. Minta tolong.
Ya Allah.
Jadi selesai kejadian itu bunyi kayak kita melihat film Titanic itu, Pak. Ya, jadi kan setelah sunyi puing-puing bot itu udah hanyut semua. Jadi kita ingin menolong tapi tidak ada daya. Jadi kayak teriris-iris lah. Kita yang melihat, kita yang menyaksikan.
The tsunami did what years of negotiation and armed conflict could not. It halted the fighting. And in 2005, a peace agreement was signed, making Aceh a special autonomous province of Indonesia, the only one with Sharia law.
We aim to end violence and to begin a new life. Our commitment is to value human life for human dignity.
Some former fighters went into politics. A Friesel went to sea.
Tapi kalau pemimpin kita sekarang saling bercekcok, saling berebut kekuasaan yang tidak menentu, yang tidak menjadi satu kehormatan untuk orang Aceh, jadi saya rasa sia-sia.
20 years on, the peace has held. The communities have rebuilt. A walk through the city gives few telltale signs of Aceh's troubled past.
It's hard to imagine these days the scale of the destruction 20 years ago, but if you ask the locals, they'll tell you. This mall, for example, they say it had to be completely rebuilt after the original one collapsed in the earthquake.
Some here, though, have found it harder to rebuild their lives than others.
Hello, Pak Ferry.
For Ferry Effendi, a TV cameraman in Banda Aceh, an earthquake that morning meant a breaking news story he had to cover.
Makanya saya ambil jaket, pakai sandal jepit, ambil sepeda motor, ambil kamera, saya pergi. Plus saya mencari bangunan-bangunan yang hancur ya. 5 menit kemudian masyarakat ramai semua di depan Masjid Raya itu mengarah lari. Penuh tuh jalan. Orang teriak-teriak, air naik, air naik. Saya belum ngeh waktu itu, air apa maksudnya gitu kan. Sampah-sampah, saya baru berpikir, anak istri saya di rumah. Saya pulang nggak bisa lagi karena jalan itu sudah penuh.
When he eventually returned, their family home was gone. While Ferry was reunited with his son a few days later, he never found his wife and daughter.
Jadi setelah situ saya sempat merenung rasa bersalah saya itu, kenapa saya harus pergi ninggalin keluarga hanya demi berita yang akhirnya nggak bisa saya kirim. Kan di situ saya merasa apa juga saya nih laki-laki kepala keluarga yang diharapin kok nggak berguna. Begitu dari mulai itu terus saya merasa seperti itu.
In the frantic weeks after the tsunami, Ferry searched everywhere, but there was no trace of his wife and daughter. He now believes they are among the 47,000 people buried in a mass grave.
Itu saya sempat juga linglung ke sana kemari sehingga udah nggak tahu lagi saya arah kemana kan.
He moved to North Sumatra and then to Jakarta for work. But Aceh pulled him back.
Saya ini kan orang yang keluar dari Aceh setelah tsunami. Jadi trauma saya lebih panjang daripada orang-orang yang ada di Aceh. Kenapa saya bilang begitu? Kenapa? Karena mereka di sini sama-sama hidup dalam dan berkembang bersama korban-korban tsunami yang traumanya hilang bersamaan secara rame-rame. Sementara saya yang bertualang ini bolak-balik dan saya mengalami sendiri ya. Akhirnya saya memutuskan untuk balik ke Aceh. Balik ke Aceh supaya saya ikut coba berada sama orang-orang korban yang sudah tidak berpikir soal itu karena sama-sama korban.
20 years later, the trauma lingers, but Ferry isn't facing it alone. He's returned to live among those who truly understand.
Jesus Christ, look at that. That wave is a good 15, 20 feet tall. Easy. Get in, get in, get in!
2 decades after the deadliest tsunami in modern history tore through Phuket, the beaches are bustling once again. On the surface, life seems to have returned to normal.
Many of the tourists who flock to Phuket today would have no idea of the horrors that unfolded here 2 decades ago. But for those who lived through the tsunami, the memories remain vivid.
Primprao Jitpantom and her husband Somchai fell in love with Phuket during their honeymoon and decided to make it their home.
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ
Nice to meet you.
ครับ
แจ๋ว
On the morning of December 26, 2004, they were setting off on a family diving trip with their 2 young sons, just 5 and 9 years old.
When did you first realise that something was wrong?
Our diving teacher noticed that the water is very low, lower than normal. When we arrived here, they plan to take the boat to the beach, but he stopped the boat. He said that
wait. There we said tsunami.
They said it's tsunami.
I don't know tsunami.
And you had your 2 little boys on board. What did you tell them?
แต่ตอนนั้นก็คือบอกลูกไว้ว่าถ้าเกิดอะไรขึ้นเนี่ยให้ลูกลอยคอไว้ลูกมีชูชีพแล้วอะค่ะไม่ต้องว่ายน้ำลอยคอไว้แล้วเดี๋ยวมีคนมาช่วยลูกเองป้ามาม่ารักลูกนะก็บอกเขาอย่างนั้นก็คือตอนนั้นก็คือว่ามันไม่รู้ว่าจะตายหรือรอดเราเห็นสภาพเหตุการณ์แล้วเนี่ยเราไม่รู้ว่าเราจะเป็นหรือตาย
On a day of so much misfortune, a stroke of luck. The wave passed beneath their boat and a nearby Navy ship rushed to their rescue. That ship would become a makeshift hospital, and Dr. Somchai and his wife Primprao, a nurse, turned from survivors to first responders, tending to the injured and dying in the hours that followed.
Many people were injured by the wound, and many people have fracture problem. We try to move them carefully. On the ship, we try to do the primary treatment, give some injection, antibiotic, and some IV fluid.
IV fluid.
They still live in Phuket, caring for tourists and the local community at Dr. Somchai's private clinic. But the memory of that day and the haunting realisation of just how close they came to being among the dead has never left them.
I feel that we were lucky. We were lucky. Many things saved us, timing, and maybe this is the destiny that something saved us and give the chance to us to help other people.
The tsunami stands as the most devastating natural disaster in Thailand's history. It ravaged hundreds of coastal villages, completely wiping out 47, including popular tourist destinations.
While most of the media was initially focused on Phuket, it was actually Khao Lak in Phang Nga province, a couple of hours north, that bore the brunt of the tsunami's destruction. So we're heading there to meet some of the survivors. My colleague Jum was a freelance producer at the time and one of the first journalists to make it to Khao Lak after the tsunami.
On the way from Phuket to Khao Lak, it was dark. There was mud everywhere. You could not see the road anymore. And when we driving past several resorts, I started to see some like dead body on the way. There were so many dead people. And when we arrived to a local hospital, it was so chaotic. They were full of badly injured people everywhere.
It was in Khao Lak where she met a woman named Wanlapa Hong Kao.
Nice to meet you. Can you show us where the house used to be?
It was on this site that Wanlapa's house once stood. On the morning the tsunami hit, she was working in a hotel. Her thoughts immediately turned to her two young daughters, who were spending the day here with her auntie and brother at home.
แต่ก็เป็นห่วงลูกโทรไปก็คือไม่ติดแล้วจะลงมาเขาก็บอกขึ้นมันมาอีกรอบเลยต้องหนีจนเช้าของอีกวันถึงได้ลงไปหาลูกลงไปปุ๊บเขาบอกไม่มีแล้วอะไปที่บ้านก็ไม่มีแล้ว
In the chaotic hours and days that followed, she tried desperately to find them.
ไปหาก็ไม่เจอไปหาลูกเขาบอกว่าไม่หาตรงไหนก็ไม่เจอไปเจออีกทีนึง3 วันที่วัดไปเจอที่วัดบางม่วงน้องลูกคนเล็ก3 วันนี่คนโตก็ยังไม่เจอตัวนี้เขาบอกตรงไหนมีตรงไหนคล้ายก็ไปหมดแต่ไม่มีอ่ะที่ว่าที่เขาเก็บศพขึ้นมาไว้ที่ว่าไม่ใช่เฉพาะวัดเฉพาะจุดไปหมดที่เขาบอกว่าตรงนี้มีศพนั่นไปหมดก็ไม่เจอ
After the tragic loss of her daughters, Wanlapa longed to have another child, but was told her only option was IVF, which she couldn't afford. It was then that the reporter Jum was working with at the time made the unexpected offer to raise the funds needed for Wanlapa's IVF treatment.
I remember I was kind of surprised and shocked and felt like, no, you should not say that. I did not translate it at first because I felt he should not give her that hopes, right? At the end, I translated it that he wanted to raise a fund and give you money. I think it's about almost a year later, he called me and I say, hey, Jum, I already raised money for Wanlapa, about $7,000 US. Can you pass that money to her? I was like, what? Really?
Wanlapa began appointments at the fertility clinic in 2006. Just months later, she managed what her doctors had told her was impossible.
หมอบอกว่ามันไม่มีโอกาสที่ว่าจะท้องมันมีแค่ไม่ถึง1 ในล้านหมอบอกเพราะว่าหนูก็ไม่แข็งแรงแล้วเชื้อก็ตอนนั้นมันผิดปกติไม่ถึง1 ในล้านพอท้องปุ๊บหมอบอกว่าให้ชื่อฟุกหมอตั้งให้เลยชื่อฟุกต่างชาติเวลาไปที่นอร์เวย์
That 1 in a million baby Fluke is now a young man and Jum's godson.
I could not believe it. I was so surprised. I was so happy for her. I remember I almost cried, and I said, wow, this is so nice. After what she's been through, she lost 2 daughters and now she's pregnant with another baby. Yeah, so I was really, really happy for her. I could not believe that I'm still emotional as well, whenever I see them. I felt like this is one of the best story I ever did. Yeah, I feel really, really happy.
Since the tsunami, authorities have put up signs around telling people where to evacuate, and they've built structures like this so that people can get to higher ground. But back then, there were no warnings and nowhere to run.
Watana Sitirachot was just 12 years old on that fateful day. He was at a game centre playing with his friends when the wave struck.
On that time, 10:30, about 10:30, most of the people they're running out from the village. But I don't know what happened in that time. And after that, it's in 10 minutes, and I just walk out and see the people what happened. Some of the people they said the wave from the sea they came up to the land like a big wave.
After days of desperate searching, he learned that that big wave had taken his family and his home.
When the tsunami took everything from my life, they changed a lot. Make myself is to thinking about just 1 minute or 2 minutes. Change my life from tsunami. No home, no one to look after. The same to other children. That is really difficult.
With no family to take care of him, he stayed in a tent with dozens of other children whose families were killed by the tsunami.
That time, I'm still always cry, and when I meet other children, they're still same. Their feeling is very same because they lost their parent, or father or mother. But that time is too difficult to get to move on. It's really difficult.
What was meant to be a temporary shelter for 70 tsunami children turned into a permanent organisation. Watana leads this very orphanage that became his home and family all those years ago.
I just would like them to have a good life, good education. When they leave from here, they should help each other. What I give to them, and they can give to each other when they leave from here, and stay like a happy family.
Two decades on, it's clear the tsunami's left a permanent mark on this place and all those who lived through it. But this is not just a story of tragedy and loss, but of survival, healing, and lifelong connections.
Sri Lanka lies about 1,700 kilometres west of Sumatra. Its eastern coast took the brunt of the tsunami, which then radiated around the southern tip. When Sri Lankan authorities first learnt of the earthquake in Indonesia, they didn't think it was possible for a resulting tsunami to reach their island. But just 2 hours later, the first waves had arrived.
Oh my God, look, it's just coming in now, right over the swimming pool. Get inside, come on guys!
There's more coming, there's more. Oh God.
Entire towns and villages along the coast were flattened. Homes, schools, businesses, infrastructure wiped out. In some areas, the monster waves travelled as far as 2 kilometres inland. The morning of 26 December 2004 was a time of joy for many aboard the Sumatra Express. It was a busy holiday weekend, with people celebrating both the Buddhist full moon and Christmas. The Sumatra Express is a train line that runs from Colombo, Sri Lanka's capital, down the southwest coast, through scenic beachside towns and villages, to Sumatra, the southernmost city of Sri Lanka. On December 26, 2004, the Sumatra Express left Fort Station in Colombo just after 6:50 a.m, packed tight with over 1,700 passengers. When Sri Lankan authorities first heard reports of the tsunami barreling towards them, they tried to warn as many train operators as possible. While authorities did manage to stop 8 other trains in time, they were unable to reach the Sumatra Express. And so, about 2 hours into this 3-hour journey, around 9 a.m, the passengers saw the first waves coming. Wanigaratna Karunatilaka was a guard on the Sumatra Express that morning. After all this time, he still finds himself replaying it in his head almost every day.
මේ වතුර පාර එනකොට ආවට පස්සේ නිකන් ලින්දකින් වතුර හින්න වගේ තමයි ආවේ. වතුර ආවේ. ඒ එනකොට මේ පාරේ ඒ පැත්තට පාරේ යනවා වාහන මිසු ගාලා යනවා හරියට වාහන අරහෙට මෙහාට යනවා. අඩි 8ක් 9ක් විතර වගේ උඩට වතුර ආවා. ඇල මගේ කකුල් දෙක ළඟින් තමයි නැත්නම් මේකේ වෙන කිසිම මගේකට හානියක් කිසිම යජාමුනේ නෑ මේ කෝච්චියේදී. ඒ වතුර පාරේ වතුර පාරුවක් ආවා. එතකොට තමයි අර ගෑනු ළමෙක් ඇවිල්ලා අර උඩ ගහ ගෙල්ලුණා. හිටියා තාප්පයක් උඩ කණුවක් අල්ලගෙන පොඩි ළමයි. කවුරක්වත් දන්නේ නැහැ වතුරට මෙහෙල්ලා මම ඒ ගාන එනකොම කොහොම ගලවලිලා බැහැලි වල ගෑනු ළමයා ඇල්ලලා මේ දාව මගේ බ්‍රේක් වෑන් එක. ඊට පේනවා මේ දැන් මේ මූද අයිනෙන් හොඳ බා උසට එනවා කළු මැදින් කළු පාටට රළ පාරක් එනවා.
The second wave that hit the train was 12 meters high. It picked the train up and smashed it against trees and houses lining the tracks. The train snapped in two, crushing those who sought shelter behind it.
කොහට හරි උඩකට යන්න තමයි දැන් අපිට අවශ්‍ය දැන් මේ මූදනේ දැන් අපි මං හිතන්නේ මූද වෙලා ගියේ. පෙට්ටියට CC කට ගියේ. පෙට්ටිය වල පාපු ගොඩනෙක් මේ 50 දින කට්ටියක් හිටියා බොහෝ දෙනෙක් මැරලා හිටියේ.
The train wreck here went down as the world's worst rail disaster, killing 1,700 people, almost all of the passengers on the train. Like many survivors of the tsunami, Karunatilaka has found it difficult to process that day.
අද අවුරුදු 20ක් වෙලත් මේ සිද්ධියට අපි තාම හිතෙන් කම්පණය වෙනවා. ඒක මේ කරපු කර්මයට.
About half an hour away, another family is living with their loss. 66-year-old M. Padmalata was on the train that day with her husband and son. It was a route she had travelled many times before. But even 20 years on, she says she remembers it like it was yesterday and that the wounds still feel fresh.
ස්ටේෂන් එක පෙනි තමයි නතර කරලා තිබුණේ. නතර කරලා තියෙන අතර තමා මම දැක්කේ අර බිම දිගේ එන වතුර පාර. ඉස්සෙල්ලම දැක්ක ගම්මැසියෝ එකතු වෙලා අඬාගෙන ඒගොල්ලෝ දිගටම කෝච්චියට එනවා. වතුර පාර දකි ඇවිල්ලා වැදින එකම සම්පූර්ණ අර අපි හිටි කෝච්චි මැදිරිය පෙරළුණා. පෙරලිලා ඒකේ ඒ වෙලාවේ මම හිතන්නේ ඒකේ 50කට වැඩිය හිටියා ඒ වෙලේ. ඒ සේරම ඇතුළට වැටුණා. ඒක උදව් කරානේ. එයාගේ අතේ එල්ලෙලා මම උඩට ඇවිල්ලා මගේ පුතා අරගෙන මහත්තයට කතා කරා ඒ වෙලාවේ යන් කියලා. දැන් බැහැලා යන් අපි කියලා. කට්ටිය යන පාරේ කියලා. ආවේ නෑ. එයා උදව් කරා. ඊට පස්සේ ඊළඟ අර වතුර පාර එනකොට ගොඩාක් කුසට එන වතුර පාර එනකොට මම දැක්කා. සේරම දැක්කා ඒක. දැන් මේ අපි ළඟට ආවට පස්සේ ඉතින් මොනවද දන්නේ නැහැ ඊට පස්සේ. සිරියක් දන්නේ නැහැ මගේ උඩින් වතුර ගියා වගේ දැනුනේ ඊට පස්සේ නිකන් එහි ඇවිල්ලා මම නැගී අර කොණ්ඩේ පැටලිලා තමයි මම එතන නතර වුණේ. ඒක තුන ඒකේ තමයි අද ඉන්නේ ඒකේ තමයි.
Padmalatha's husband and son were not so lucky. They both died that day on the train.
මට කිසි දිනක ඉතින් අමතක කරන්න බෑ මගේ දරුවා. ඒ වගේම හොඳ සැමියෙක් හිටියේ. බල නෑ මං එදා ඉඳලම තිබ්බේ නෑ. මෙන්ටල් වෙලානේ ඉඳලා තියෙන්නේ තව මේ වෙනම දකින්න මාව පිරිහෙනවා විතරනේ. මේ නිසා ඒ වැඩ කරන්නේ තිබ්බේ නෑ එකක්වත්.
This is the exact spot where the train was stopped when it was pummeled by a 40-foot wave. It is marked here in Perilia village, about half an hour's drive north of Galle.
It's an emotional spot for survivors and those left behind. For many, it's still too emotional to return. The trauma is too fresh. So, everyone. Hello.
Like the Gamagay family who live nearby, their lives were forever altered by the tsunami. Aryavati was waiting for her son, daughter and grandson to arrive at home. They had boarded the Sumatra Express earlier that day.
ඉතින් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු හිටියේ මේගොල්ලන් වේල පහින් එයි කියලා. එන හැඩක් නෑ. පස්සේදී තමයි ආරංචි උනේ මේ කට්ටිය හැමේ දුවන්න ගත්ත අපේ ගමේ. ඉතින් අපි මොකද කියලා. ඒකට තමයි කිව්වේ මෙහෙම මුද ගොඩ ගහනවා.
කට්ටියම ගෝ කෝච්චිය නවත්තලා කට්ටිය බහැලා යන්නේ නැති මොන හරි කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ ඉතින් දවල් එද්දි තමයි ඉතින් මේගොල්ලෝ ගැන කිසි ආරංචියක් හම්බුන්නේ නැහැ ඉතින්. මේ පාර ගමේ කට්ටිය ගිහිල්ලා කෝච්චිය පෙරලිච්ච තැන බල්ලා තිබ්බා. ඒ කියන්නේ යාලට අඳුර ගන්න බැරිලා මිනිස්සු ගොඩක් අය එක ගොඩ ඉඳලා තිබුණා. ඒත් ඒගොල්ලන්ට අර යන්නුන්නේ අර සැරින් සැරට ඕන තව එකක් එනවා කිය මිනිස්සු බය වුණානේ. මම එක දිගටම ගියා මේ නාමා නිවාසවල ඔය කඳවුරු තිබුණානේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ විචය දාපු කඳවුරු තිබුණානේ. ඒ හැම කඳවුරක වගේ ගියා මේ මේගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නවද කියලා බලන්න.
The Gamagay family continued to search for their missing loved ones for months, but Aryavati's husband, Sunny, was unable to handle the stress of such a harrowing task.
තාත්තා රස්සාවට ගියේ නැහැ ගෙදරට ගියා. ඒ වෙනුවෙන් ගියා කොයි වෙලේට කියනවා කවදාකවත් නඩු වෙන්නේ නැති මිනිස්සෙක්. ඒගොල්ලෝ ගිය තැනට මාත් යනවා කියලා අපිත් එක්ක නඩු වෙවි බොන්නේ යන එකමයි වැඩි. අරක්කු ගේනවා බොනවා දෙයිට ඇරෙන්න.
11 difficult years after the tsunami, Sunny died of liver failure.
දැනුවත් කරන්න පුළුවන්කම තිබ්බනේ. දැන් නම් තියෙයි කියන ඒවත් ඒ උනට බලන වෙලාවෙ කියන කඩ කැඩිලයි කියලා.
Sri Lankan authorities have attempted rehabilitation and reconstruction over 20 years, but the tsunami has had devastating long-term effects.
Analysts and activists say the danger is still here. I'm on my way to meet Amita Arudpragasam, a policy analyst and researcher. She says the country is still not as prepared as it could be for another disaster like this.
happened in 2004, we saw that when the sea retreated, which is an early warning sign of a tsunami, people actually moved towards the sea as opposed to evacuating inland. And that kind of showed that they didn't really understand what a tsunami was. Maybe more worrying or more concerning is, given the likelihood of a tsunami in the future, the probability is relatively rare compared to other types of natural disasters, floods, droughts, heat waves, landslides. The communities in these spaces are really poorly prepared to deal with threats going forward, even though they may be more aware now of what a tsunami is.
Sri Lanka has largely moved on from the tsunami, as you might expect after 20 years. But there are thousands of people in the country who just can't forget what they've lost. And with population centres here only growing, the risk to human life has grown as well. But this is a tight-knit community, and that does offer some relief.
As the waves tore through Sri Lanka, India's southeast coast was struck almost at the same time. I'm in the southernmost state of Tamil Nadu, which was hardest hit by the tsunami. The victims were mostly women and children. We're on our way to meet some of them in a tiny island just a few kilometres from here, which was decimated during the disaster. As we get closer to Titu Island, fishermen tell us no one lives there anymore. Instead of rebuilding their lives on this island, many families were relocated to the mainland. My colleague Jency Samuel and I are here to meet one of them. This is Porselvi. In December 2004, she and her husband Rajendran were raising two young sons aged 8 and 6, along with their baby daughter.
போட்டிருந்த ட்ரெஸ்ஸு மறக்கவே முடியல. ஒரு பையன் பேட்டு ஒரு பையன் பால் அது ரெண்டும் எடுத்துட்டு அந்த கேட்டை விட்டு வெளியானது அப்படியே இருக்கு.
It was the last time she would see them. Only the elder boy's body was recovered.
அதனால எங்க வீட்டுக்காரர் தான் போனார். ஒரு குழந்தையை தூக்கி அடக்கம் பண்ணப்போ எங்க வீட்டுக்காரர் போய் அடக்கம் பண்ணார். எந்த தகவலுமே என்கிட்ட சொல்லவே இல்லை. அந்த இல்லைன்னு சொல்கிற அந்த நிமிஷத்துலேருந்து இது வரையிலுமே ஏன் நம்ம இருக்கோம் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி தான் இருக்குது.
Porselvi and Rajendran were shattered, yet they had no choice but to build their lives up again, especially for their surviving daughter. Government assistance ensured access to food, clothing, and over time, a permanent home. But guilt was eating away at her.
நம்ம புள்ள நம்மளாண்ட வந்த புள்ளைய பிடிக்க முடியலையே, அந்த துடிப்பு எப்படி இருக்கும், அந்த அந்த நேரம் என்ன நினச்சிருக்கோம், அம்மானு நினச்சிருக்குமே, அம்மானு அழுதுருக்குமே அப்படின்னு அந்த ஒரே மைண்ட் செட் அப்படி தான். நிறைய பிள்ளைங்க இருந்து எல்லாரும் ஓடிட்டாங்க, போட்டில் போனாங்க அப்படின்னு சொன்னாங்க. ஸோ நம்ம பிள்ளை நம்மளை தேடி அம்மாவோட போகணும்னு சொல்லிட்டு வந்து தானே இந்த மாதிரி ஆச்சு. அதை என்னால் ஏற்றுக்கவே முடியாது.
What hurt Porselvi the most was her inability to dream of having more children. Fishing communities like theirs were prime targets for India's family planning initiatives, with village nurses often encouraging women to undergo sterilisation after having 2 or 3 children. Many women would consent to this, especially if they had at least one son.
கவர்மெண்ட்ல வீடு கொடுத்தாலும் எல்லா சலுகையும் செஞ்சாலும் நம்மளோட இழப்பு நமக்கு புள்ள வேணுமே எப்படி அப்புறமா வீட்டில் இருந்துட்டா போதுமா அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி குழந்தையினுடைய நினப்பு தான் ஃபுல் அண்ட் ஃபுல்.
I heard one of the seniors, very senior gynecologists, she wanted to help the mothers who had lost their children. She wanted to do the reversal of the sterilization operation. Already I had been doing cardiac surgery, it's a microsurgical work. So I thought instead of giving food and solace to the people, why not do this?
Cardiothoracic surgeon Dr. Bala Neelakandan offered to reverse their tubectomies. The surgery, known as recanalization, reconnects a woman's fallopian tubes that have been severed to prevent eggs from reaching the uterus. While it's a significant operation with a success rate of around 50%, many mothers bravely approach Dr. Bala despite the risks and potential pain. Together with his anaesthesiologist wife, he performed over 40 of these surgeries.
That is a basic, no? That is the nucleus of any life, any family life.
The government certainly thought so and took the unusual and generous step to pay for these surgeries.
First child was born there. We did Caesar section.
Shanti Samanathan was one of the women who approached Dr. Bala. She lost her 4 kids in the tsunami. 3 boys and a girl.
குழந்தைங்கள்லாம் தண்ணியில் போன பிறகு நான் அப்படியே சும்மா மெண்டல் மாதிரி எங்கள் அம்மா வீட்டில் தான் இருந்தேன். தண்ணியிலேயே தலை அடிச்சுக்கிட்டு தான் நான் வரேன்.
Shanti's surgery was successful. She gave birth to 2 girls following the procedure.
நான் வந்து பையனை 3 பையனை பெற்று அதை நான் இல்லை என்கிட்ட. பையனை போல் என் பிள்ளையோட வளர்க்கணும், படிக்க வைக்கணும், அது நல்லா அது திறமைக்கு வேலைக்கு போகணும், அது கையால் சம்பாதிக்கணும், அதுக்கு மாதிரி தான் அது கல்யாணம்.
Shanti tells me she defied her parents' wishes and went through with the surgery, partly to save her marriage.
எங்கள் புருஷனு என்னை வந்து கொஞ்சம் மதிக்கலை, கொஞ்சம் வெறுப்பாக நடந்துட்டாங்க. நம்மளுக்கும் குழந்தை இல்லையே, அதனால தான் இப்படி செய்கிறாங்களோ அப்படின்னு தான். நம்ம எப்படியா இருந்தாலும் நம்ம குழந்தை வேணும் நம்மளுக்கு. ஆண் குழந்தையா இருந்தானா பொண்ணாக இருந்தா என்ன.
It was a contrast to Porcelvi, who had to be convinced by her family to undergo the procedure. Her feelings around it are still complex.
அப்பயும் நான் சொல்கிறேன், ஏன் எனக்கு இதெல்லாம் செய்கிறேங்க, இதெல்லாம் செஞ்சு நான் என்ன எப்படி இருக்க போகிறேன் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி நிறைய வலி அவஸ்தை, வேண்டானுங்கிற மாதிரி செஞ்ச பிறகுமே எனக்கு நம்பிக்கையே இல்லை. எனக்கு திரும்பவும் குழந்தை பிறக்கும் அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு நம்பிக்கையே இல்லை. பாப்பா வந்து 8 மாதமாக இருக்கும் பொழுது கூட இதெல்லாம் எனக்கு எதுக்கு செஞ்சங்க அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி ஒரு இதாக தான் இருந்தது, ஒரு பிடிப்பில்லாத ஒரு இதாக தான் ஓடிச்சு.
In 2006, Porcelvi gave birth to a girl, and 6 years later, she had a boy. She tells me most of the women who underwent the surgery at the same time as her didn't get pregnant. She still mourned her sons, but felt blessed to have a second chance. We're heading further south to the region of the state that was hardest hit. The fishing communities here were among the worst affected by the disaster. I'm in the beach town of Nagapattinam, where more than 6,000 people lost their lives. Just 20 metres from the shoreline, these houses still stand as a stark reminder of the horrors this community had to face. I'm here to meet Ravi. He's a fisherman. He was 31 at the time and visiting his parents when they were hit by the tsunami.
நான் எந்திரிக்கும் போதே என் மூஞ்சி ஃபுல்லாகவே வெறும் சகதி சேருன்னு சொல்லுவோம். அது அந்த சேரு காதெல்லாம் இப்படி கையை வச்சா வெறும் சேரு அடைச்சிக்கிட்டு, மூக்கெல்லாம் அப்படி அடைச்சிக்கிட்டு, கெமிக்கல் வாடை, ஒரு ஒரு மாதிரியான கெமிக்கல் வாடை, மூச்சு திணறல் சுவாசிக்க முடியல. அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு கெமிக்கல் ஃபுல்லாகவே உடம்பு ஃபுல்லாக இருந்துச்சு அந்த தண்ணியில் முழுவி எந்திரிச்ச பிறகு.
Ravi went back to check on his home and found his boat had been smashed into splinters. But that wasn't all.
அது வழியாக நடந்து வந்து பார்த்தா வீட்டில் வறண்டாவில் ஒரு 4 பேர். எனக்கு பயம், சரியான பயம், என்ன இவ்வளோ பேர்.
In the days that followed, Ravi and his friends worked tirelessly to recover bodies, laying them to rest.
ஆற்றுல அடிச்சுட்டு போனவங்க அங்கே ஆற்றுல போய் அங்கே கிடந்தது அங்கங்கே எடுத்து அந்தந்த இடத்துல போய்க்க ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டோம். ஒவ்வொரு இடத்துக்கு கொண்டு வர முடியல, ஏன்னா வீணாக போயிட்டுச்சு எல்லாமே. ஒரு மாதிரியாக ஸ்மெல்லில் நாற்றம் அடிக்க ஆரம்பிக்கவும் அந்தந்த இடத்துல எடுத்து அப்படி அங்கேயே விதைக்க ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டோம். ஒரு இடத்துக்கு கொண்டுட்டு வர முடியல.
He tells me many people moved away.
ஆனால் அந்த மனசில் அந்த வடு இருக்குது, இன்னமும் இருக்குது தான், அந்த ஆறாத புண்ணு மாதிரி.
But Ravi and his family wanted to stay. This was their home.
தொழில் பார்த்து சரி இனிமேல் என்ன செய்ய முடியும், இனிமேல் நம்ம எப்படி அதிலேருந்து மீண்டு வரலாம்னு சொல்லிட்டு ஒரு இதுக்கு வந்துட்டோம் பொசிஷன். நம்ம பிரதர்லாம் இருக்காங்க அப்படின்னு சொன்னாக்கா நாங்கள் வரமாட்டோம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு தூரமாக தான் நாங்கள் இந்த இடத்துக்கு இனிமேல் வரமாட்டோம், எனக்கு ரொம்ப பயமாக இருக்குது அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு
In these mangrove forests of Bichavaram, where dense vegetation lines the coast, it was a different story. I'm in Bichavaram, inside one of the oldest mangrove forests in the world. It's also home to the Irula tribe. While many of the communities around this area were ravaged by the tsunami, the Irulas remained largely unscathed, with fewer casualties and minimal damage. And I'm here to find out how. Sharmila was just 7 years old when the tsunami came.
சுனாமி வந்தப்போ ரொம்ப பார்த்துட்டோம். அப்பா அம்மாலாம் எங்களை எடுத்துகிட்டு போயிட்டு ஒரு தண்ணி டேங்குக்குள்ளே உட்கார வச்சுட்டாங்க.
She's since spent her life raising awareness about the importance of mangroves.
சுனாமி வந்துட்டா எங்களுக்கு தடுக்கிறதுக்கு எதுவுமே கிடையாது. பாதுகாப்பான ஒரு விஷயம்னாக்கா அது இந்த சதுப்பு நில காடு தான்.
There are around 25,000 irulas in the region. For generations, they've relied on the mangroves for survival, hunting for crabs, prawns and fish in its muddy waters. Sharmila's father-in-law Virappan was the chieftain of the Irula tribe when the tsunami hit. He lived a little further out of the mangrove forest at the time.
அதுக்கு அந்தாண்ட சரி என்னதான் நடந்துச்சு இங்கே எம்ஜிஆர் அப்போ தான் பார்த்தா ஜனமெல்லாம் இந்த முடியெல்லாம் மாட்டிக்கிட்டு பொம்பளைங்க ஆம்பளைங்கெல்லாம் துணியெல்லாம் கிடையாது, அப்படியே செத்துட்டாங்க, எல்லாமே செத்துட்டாங்க, எல்லாம் செத்து போயிட்டாங்க. புளி அடித்தா எப்படி இப்படி சுரண்டி காயமாக இருக்கும்ல, அதுமாரி இந்த முள் அடித்து காயம், உடம்பெல்லாம் காயம். இதுதான் வேதை, இதுதான் வேதை.
He went to check on the rest of the tribe near the mangroves and discovered they had been shielded from the waves.
சரியாக வரல, ஆனால் ஊருக்கு தண்ணி வந்துச்சு, ஆனால் பொறுமையாக சுலாக தான் வந்துச்சு, வேகத்தில் வரல. வேகம் மாறுறது பொறுமையாக வந்துச்சு தண்ணி. காடு தடுத்துருக்கு எங்களுக்கு, இல்லைன்னா எங்கள் ஊரும் பாய்ச்சிருக்கோம், ஊரில் இருக்கிறவங்க செத்துருப்பாங்க. இதுலேருந்து வேறு இறக்கும்.
After the tsunami, it was the tribe's turn to nurture the forests.
இது முத்தின பிறகு அறுத்து நம்ம கீழே ஊனோம்னாக்கா இதுலேருந்து வேறு இறக்கும். இறக்கிருக்கு இல்லையா.
The tribe partnered with scientists from the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, which advocated for the Irula's fishing rights. In turn, the tribe worked with them to plant additional mangroves.
We used to call it as a science-based and a community-centric model. So from the MSRF side, we provided scientific inputs. From the community, they shared their traditional knowledge.
And it worked well.
The mangrove forest cover has increased. That's the nature of the rural community. They know the values of natural resources.
ஆனால் போனால் தொட்டு காலைல இப்படி போனோம்னாக்கா தொட்டு இப்படி கும்பிடும் அது உண்டு. காலைல போகிறோம்னா இதில் இறங்கி போகிறோம்னா இந்த செடியை பார்த்து தொட்டு இப்படி கும்பிடும். அதுதான் அதுலேருந்து அப்படியே போயிட்டு அப்படியே.
As a changing climate brings more extreme weather, the lessons of Bitjavaram remind us that nature can be our greatest ally if we take care of it. The Irulas know this well.
அது ஒரு வேரி இங்கே ஒரு 6000 காய் கொண்டு நட்டம் இடம் அது அந்த இடத்துல இருக்க இடம் அது.
They survived because of the mangroves, and now they're ensuring these vital forests will continue to protect future generations.
Humans' need is spreading everywhere. If you reduce your needs, the nature will provide you all kinds of protection. The nature is for the need of the people, not for the greed of the people. That is the thing that we have to follow. That is